Welcome back to the MMA Creators Podcast, episode number 31. It's another weird week because we're in a strange position where there doesn't seem to be any sort of combat sports going on, and that is because of the holidays, of course. And that is actually really what I wanted to talk to you about because it has just been Christmas. We are recording this on New Year's Eve. I just wanted to ask you straight how your Christmas has been. How's that gone for you?
Kind of happy that we're recording on New Year's Eve first and foremost, because I really want to be adamant on just ticking all the small, easy to hit goals. And I think one podcast a week is one of those. So I'm glad that we're doing that first and foremost. Second of all, for me,
Of course.
pretty chilled. To be honest, there wasn't a lot of differentiation to the last couple of weeks and the rest of the year in a lot of senses. Christmas Day was nice. I got to spend it with family. Super chilled. Didn't have to go anywhere. So I was just grateful. In truth, I'm getting to a stage in my life where I am just very grateful if everyone's healthy and everyone is somewhat happy. You're never going to get happiness all round, but somewhat happy. So had that, had some really good food. So I was happy. And then I've just been sort of clearing up my tasks, my responsibilities and my goals for 2024 really, and just sort of tidying them up so that when we get stuck into the new year, we can sort of just run smoothly. How about yourself?
Yeah, I was actually going to say, you're talking about you're just at the point where you're being grateful. I think the point where you sort of realize you become a bit of an adult, like around Christmas, is when you get excited over like the most mundane stuff. Like this one was for my birthday a while back, but I think I might have mentioned this. I got excited over a set of kitchen knives, which I saw you just got a new set of as well, which I wanted to ask you about. But I was like obsessed with these new knives that I got, and I was like, imagine like 14-year-old me saying that. God, like you couldn't imagine it. So that was the point where I sort of knew I'm getting old for it in a nice way, you know.
Well, saying that, I think a lot of kids where you growing up around South London often ask for a bunch of kitchen knives for their birthday at 13.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Very good.
But I 100% feel with what you're saying in terms of now we're at that age where you start appreciating different parts of the celebration and also just different gifts that not necessarily the most exciting things in the world, but things that really do help out your day to day, and super appreciative of them. What was the weirdest gift you've either ever received or received this year?
Oh, I mean, I would say weird. I'd say out of the box, actually, because it's quite nice. I would show you. I should have got it out, but I basically, that on-air sign you've got behind you, I basically got the exact same thing. My older brother just got it for me. So I wouldn't say that's particularly weird, but something interesting that I didn't expect. I did get once back when I used to play violin back in the day, when I was at school. I got like I can't even remember what it was. I think it's in my drawer. I don't know. It's like some sort of electric tuner thing. I had no clue. That was a bit strange, but quite cool. But yeah, I mean, I'm getting excited over socks this year, so that's how you know. That's how you know we're at that age, as I said. Yeah, no, it was a fun time. Pretty chill. Classic family getting too drunk and then loads of just inability to play board games. Not on my part, but just on the elderly part. It was fun though.
Christmas Day cheese board fanatic?
I'm not, but I did help make Christmas dinner this year, which was good fun. Got to do the honey roasted parsnips, carrots as well, stuffing, all of that. Yeah, it was great. I did though. This was actually going to show you scars of war. These bad boys, nasty burns from the oil, basically.
There's some legit ones.
Yeah. This one, like, for the audio listeners, it's just some oil burns on my wrist. That one is pretty nasty, I can't lie. But
How did
yeah,
you do
it was
that?
actually pretty bad. So basically, I was meant to heat the oil up to like near smoking, basically. And I was like, it's hot enough. I'm gonna toss them in. My mum was like, nah, leave it. I was like, what do you mean? And then I was like, fine, cool. She's head chef. I'll listen to what she's doing. And then I just tossed the carrots in, literally spatting everywhere because the oil was too hot, as I said. And basically just fully just assaulted my wrist, essentially, with oil. So that was fun, painful. But yeah, we were in recovery, but it was worth it because I can't lie, carrots and parsnips were banging, spot on. So I was pretty proud. The success, all in all.
The In America, they have, of course, they take it to another level. They do turkey, but they deep fry their turkey. A lot of people, so they not
No,
only have
that's wild.
vats essentially of burning oil. So every year around Christmas, there's always a lot of house fires because in America, people are adamant on frying
Only in
anything,
America.
and they don't make exceptions for the turkey. And as you can imagine, turkeys are big in the UK. Then if you go to American turkey farms, you can imagine they're
Yeah,
probably 10 times the size, literal dinosaurs. So people always create house fires with those, and a lot of people buy them frozen. And by now, if you mix water with hot oil, it is a
very
recipe
dangerous.
for disaster. But I'm glad you had a good Christmas anyway.
Yeah.
The New Year's obviously coming up, right? I know that you've said before you're someone that doesn't necessarily plan an awful lot. You're not necessarily as organized in that respect. But what does a New Year's look like for you? Do you write down goals? Are you writing down more vague things that you want to sort of hit?
I've been doing a lot of thinking, less writing, a lot of thinking actually. A little bit of action as well. I did launch, so I talked to you, I think a week or so ago. About, I mean, I mentioned multiple times about the multi-language channels thing. So I just realized I need to just take the first step towards that. Otherwise, I'll never do it. Right. So I don't have to do it all now, but let's just take that first step, set up the channel. Because that's such a tedious thing that you'll never get around to doing it if you don't actually take the action. Do you know what I'm saying? It's one of those little things, the first hurdle.
True.
So I've done that, set that up, linked it up in my channel. Then I started experimenting with AI voice tools, trying to replicate my voice. Trials, use Descript, which is a software. Didn't really work that well. Didn't have the cadence with my voice. Started making me sound a bit Canadian and Australian at the same time, which was a bit weird. It didn't really understand my vocal sort of inflection. So I scrapped that. I've heard 11 Labs, which is another one. So I haven't tried that out yet, but that's
That is
I've
good.
used the voices of that before to try out, but making my own one I haven't. It's annoying. You can't preview it, which sucks because I want to actually try it out to buy it, but I don't want to spend the fork out the money straight away.
On 11
But that
Labs?
looks like an option. Yeah, you can't trial your own AI voice, so you can't. I mean, to my knowledge, maybe I'm wrong there, but when I tried it, I couldn't see an option for it. So that's something I have to look into because it's either that or I use just a trained AI voice already to do my voiceovers, which is also definitely a valid option. But I want it to sound like me. I feel like that's part of it. But that's the first foray into that. So I think once we'll give that a few trial runs, see how it performs. Again, it's not that much effort to do realistically because all I'm doing is copy pasting my script in there, duplicating the project file or just creating a new timeline and then replacing the audio track with the new one because the video is already done. The thumbnail, I just have to change the language on the thumbnail. I've been trying to pay respect in terms of like translation, make sure nothing gets lost in translation. So I've been doing some research on which translators to use and stuff like that. Really now I wish I was a bit of a linguist, but I'm not, sadly. But yeah, so it's the first sort of steps into a new foray for next year. Excited about it. Also been thinking about, I know we talked about digital products as well as products, and I was just thinking large scope over the next couple of years of where I could be in terms of advertising maybe my own products or selling them, whatever that might be. Just throwing ideas out there. And I've mentioned to you a while back, I know you're into that of clothing, and I've always thought myself as like wanting to jump into that. So started just doing some rough thinking of ideas maybe. But I was thinking about stuff I'm passionate about as well. And I was like, coffee would be nice. I was like, I always need a coffee when I want to stay up for a pay per view. I was like, why would we do that? But again, it's just again floating ideas more than anything and pipe dreams at the moment. But the language stuff with other channels is actually something we're really pushing next year. So looking forward to it.
I definitely think that is something I struggled with the most over the first 12 to 24 months, I would probably say, is having so many different ideas or having so many different directions I wanted to take it, especially because it was new and I was still experimenting with what I enjoyed in the MMA space, how I enjoyed creating all these things. So I would have a million different ideas. And then I started to realize I always knew the correct answer was just because you can doesn't mean that you should. And that rings true very, very loudly for me in 2024. And I think the difference for me, just a little bit opposed to the last couple of years, especially in this industry at least, is a lot more concentration and focus onto less things for me. And I think that's where I'm probably going to get the most growth this year. So I've been able to just sort of identify
Mm.
what I actually want to achieve with the pages, what I actually want to get out of this year. I've never really been able to do that. I've been able to put a few rough goals here and there, which I've always had, and ideas down the line, which I've always had, but I've never really been able to put pen on paper. I would like to achieve this, and then reverse engineer of how to build to those goals. So, for example, if one is build 100,000 followers on Instagram, not just writing that down, but then writing, right, how can I get to that? Okay, probably it's going to be post 4 minimum times a day. How can we go viral more consistently? Okay, well, this particular form of content works well. So if we contextualize it for Instagram, then we can do one of those each day. Okay. And then working on the different pillars of content and just working everything backwards. So I think that's what I've tried to do. These last couple of days, I've just sat on my laptop and I've built a document. This is a bit random, but I've never done this before. But I built a document that I want to use as a reference point every single day. So I've got it on my tabs, I've got it on my home bar, and I just want to be able to go on my laptop, and every day I go on my laptop, open it up, and it just has a rough guide to absolutely any question, mood, feeling, or query that I have, and I can just go back to that. For example, what that looks like is at the top, I've got all my goals. Then below that, I've got actually why I'm doing it and the reasons I'm doing it for, and just some photo collages just to sort of keep those emotions fresh, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Then off the back of that, what I've also got is what a rough week's going to look like, because I know roughly what my weeks look like now, Monday to Monday, so I can make a bit more of a plan. Then I've broken down what each day is going to look like roughly. So it's not saying that I have to go in and follow these every single day word for word. But if I'm stuck, if I feel like I don't know what to do, if there's something I should be doing, I can go on this page and say, right, can I be doing this? And it's 100 different things of, even if it's a workout, creating a piece of content, doing some research. There's a million different ideas of things I can do and different energy levels as well. So that if I'm very lethargic,
Mm.
I can go and do something which is going to be lower on the energy list. So I won't keep going into that. But yeah, I just made a very detailed document essentially that I can always just reference back to any point of the year, any point of the day, and I can sort of go back and know where I'm at, if that makes sense. So that's what I've been
Yeah.
up to with
Yeah, I think
that.
I'm similar to that, just in terms of it's all in my head. Like,
Yeah,
I've set a goal. I'm pretty firm on saying, right, 40,000 subscribers by the end of next year. And I think that's pretty achievable. That's another 26,000 to go. So if I get
for
26,000 in a
sure.
year, I could probably get further than that, to be honest. But obviously, I'm not going to sell myself, too short or too far. So it's a goal. And I've just kind of mentally planned out the steps and the proceeds I'm already taking to get there. I've realized using Oprah's clip, as we talked about, has been instrumental towards growth, because I didn't realize how powerful shorts were for gaining sort of traffic and subscribers. And there's a lot of people that say short form content doesn't translate to long form viewers, but there's not really a lot of data to prove that that's true. And guys like Lionel Rivera, shout out to him, he's disproved that massively. He's only got about 8 or 9 long form videos. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but he primarily was a short form content creator, and now he's shifted to long form as well, and he's having massive success because of it. So, and that's no disrespect, his videos are very good as well, so that's also part of the reason. But there is some merit there, so it's an avenue I'm also going down, along with doing the one video a week, which I'm trying to expand, build the scope out. I really want to delve into these just sort of longer form videos, make them just something to be proud of. Do you know what I mean? I feel like when back in the day when I was rushing out 2 videos a week, I was never really proud of what I was making. I never really felt like it
Mm.
was, something to be worthwhile. I just did it because I was like, this is productivity, and it just wasn't the right amount. It was the same amount of time I was using, just not in the right way. And now I think we're finally hitting a stride going into sort of next year, um, of making videos where I'm saying, this is actually something good that I would watch. If I was a viewer, I'm going to watch this video and take something out of it. And it's clearly shown that in the actual success of my videos as well. Like, I'm having much more traffic. Obviously, my MMA awards video maybe didn't do as well as I hoped, but 10,000 views. I'm not going to complain. I've learned to appreciate that a lot more than I used to. Um, so yeah, this year's been quite humbling in terms of just learning the ups and downs, and I'm in a much more confident and better place, ready for the trials and tribulations, if you will. But yeah, optimistic.
I think that's a good point you raised about making better videos, because I think that's something that is sometimes lost along the way, because it's easy to do that. When you're breaking down videos on YouTube, especially, you've got thumbnails and titles. On short form, you have that less so. But when you're breaking down videos, trying to optimize their virality and their performance and all these different things, sometimes we move away from the essence, which is create good content, and then that'll
Indeed.
just circle back. So I do think that is super important. But that's one element as well. I guess I should probably speak about what I've been up to this week as well, which is essentially finding a virtual assistant online, which is what I've worked on this week and
Interesting.
done this week, is found a virtual assistant to collaborate and feed back to me research for TikTok. So basically, I'm paying them. What that looks like is I'm paying them every fortnight at the moment, and I created a very detailed document of different things I'm looking for, what videos I'm trying to create, creators to look into, our way to build their algorithms, so they can feed back information to me, but then essentially make a grid or a table each bi-weekly, which feedbacks
Nice.
all the best performing videos, what they've done, how long they are, and then I can look to break down those, find the similarities, and more so I can just predict success a lot more than guessing, a lot
Yeah.
more than just trying to find success and just think about what's a good idea, taking that out of question and finding what works already and reverse engineering that to my own work. Whatever that looks like, whether that's a good video idea that I've seen on YouTube, which can be contextualized then to TikTok, whatever that may be. So yeah, virtual assistant on the scene. But that's my goal for this
Interesting.
year, is really to, for the first time ever, to start actually reducing the luck involved in virality, essentially. And I'm talking
Difficult
mainly on
task.
TikTok and TikTok here. It is, but it isn't as well. It is, but it isn't, because
Sometimes it's trivial.
of course, there'll be
Yeah.
many occasions, and that is important you say that, because there's many occasions where you may not be able to find a reason of which you know. It may not be the fact that they've done X technique or Y edit or Z subtypes. It may be completely random, or it may be the simple fact that it's just very valuable and it's just a talking head of someone speaking. But my point is, whether it comes to people, whether it comes to search terms. So it's not even just the videos, it's more so the SEO now, which is behind TikTok, because that's such a big thing now, is because search terms are so prominent on TikTok. They're becoming a big way to judge and gauge videos a lot better, because now they're showing you not only what people are typing in, but then different search terms off the back of that. So they're essentially giving you video ideas, right? So if you type in
Yeah.
Sean Strickland, it gives you the suggested search features then of Sean Strickland girlfriend breakup, Sean Strickland talks on Dom Reyes, and then it gives you all the title ideas. So long-winded way of me saying I've basically brought someone on board to collect all that and just feed it back to me.
Compile it. Yeah.
So
It's a good idea.
essentially it's one less thing I have to go through and spend hours on. And my goal really this year, what I've focused and learned 100%, is I want to be doing what I want as much of this time as possible in the year. And what I want to do is be chatting to people in front of camera and be eating and traveling. So I always want to be in front of the camera. I don't want to be behind it. So I don't want to be doing data scans. I don't want to be doing editing. I don't want to be doing these small bits. I just don't want to.
Yeah.
So
No,
I would
I
rather
can vision
pay the
it too.
money.
I don't see
I
it for
would
you.
rather pay the money to give to other people, so I can just focus on what I do well, which is bringing people together and then just doing me. And that's what I want for 2024. I want to do me more times than not. I don't want to have to be the accountant. I don't want to have to be the editor, the thumbnail, the distributor. I don't have to do
I get it.
everything,
Yeah.
but you do at the start. So that's where I'm at for
That's the
2024.
hard work
The
you got to
year,
put in, though.
The year of
Like, that's
doing
it.
less.
Yeah. No, I agree. I can see that for you as well, though, because I think you're much more naturally a in front of camera person. You know, I was watching your Food Fighter stuff, and you know how I feel about that series. I think that's your, as I've said many times, that's your golden goose. I think that's what you do best. I think the professionalism of it is incredible. And
Thank you.
that's something you should really be pursuing the most. And if being able to free up your time to do those things is a possible option, then I say go for it. Obviously, for me, my own experiences are different. Like YouTube, as in itself, of being a YouTuber, I think that's what I'd more classify myself as compared to someone like you. Um, it's a lot more solitary and it's a lot more heavy lifting in terms of you have to do all the pieces of the puzzle by yourself for a longer time. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I mean, we're both content creators. It's always going to be a tricky task, I think, to manage by yourself. So hopefully, I want to be in that position, as you said, for you, where I can start to, hand off some of those responsibilities as well. But the thing is, when it comes to telling stories, like in my content, obviously the longer form videos, telling the story is such an intricate, like in-depth part of the creation of the video. So handing that off to someone is such a big responsibility that I don't know if I'm ready to do. So I
I
don't know.
think with outsourcing, it's the reason. So, for example, the reason I'm outsourcing or trying to outsource as much as I can is so that I'm fed more time to do the original part, which is the content, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
essentially, the only thing that isn't getting outsourced is me, which is what I want it to be. Essentially, that's what anyone that wants it to be, really. If they're sort of running their own thing, they want to be doing what they want to enjoy as much of the time. I think for you, obviously your dynamic definitely looks different. I definitely think there's if that was a goal of yours, I'm not saying it had to be, I definitely think there's things you could begin to put in place to alleviate time intensive tasks. I definitely think
Hmm.
if you looked at your week from start to finish, there's some things, not necessarily now, but down the road, that you could offload,
Oh,
however
of
that
course. Yeah.
looks, to alleviate more time for you just to write in, essentially, right? So I definitely think that's
Yeah, I
important
mean, something I can definitely
for
envision
sure.
is when I'm managing multiple channels, that's going to become something which is going to be a bit hectic logistically. So for sure, when I'm going to have, let's say, I have 3 or 4 language channels, they're going to be a bit frustrating to
Why
operate.
is that such a
So
big goal to you? Not saying that you shouldn't be. I'm just intrigued.
um, mainly because the effort is minimal. It sounds like it's not like a bad thing to say. The effort and resources taking to do so compared to the potential reward, uh, is is a very nice balance, if you know what I mean. So
This is a question I don't know the answer to. Just asking it. Is it so? If the goal is to maximize earnings of your channel and to grow as much as possible, if that is the
yeah,
goal, for
well, it's
example,
part of it.
of your main channel, right? I guess you don't really know the answer, but when you think about it, does it look as though spending time on multiple channels is going to contribute to that goal greater than if you were to concentrate the time just into that one channel? Again, I don't know the answer.
So you're saying which one is the better option, essentially?
I'm you're not gonna
Yeah.
know, but I'm saying when you've weighed it up in your head, what does that look like?
Well, when it comes down to it, it's posting the same content. So I wouldn't say I would be at the point where I'm dropping resources from the main channel because
But you
it's all
would
really.
time,
Yeah, it
for
would
sure.
be, but I don't think my point is the time taken to you know multiply that piece of content however many times in a different language format and posting to a different audience is very small compared to the time I would be using on the main channel anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like that allocated time I would be using on these new channels, I don't think it could go anywhere more useful than that, if that makes sense. Like, I think it's a pretty good option. Obviously, I could be wrong. This is at the end of the day, it's still an
Yeah, cool.
experiment for now.
Yeah.
It's still you also have to get at the hurdle of monetization. They have to get 1,000 subscribers and the watch hours, so they're not going to be profitable for a while until they reach those thresholds for each
4,000 watch
channel.
hours, I think, right?
Yeah, they've changed it now. I don't think you need 1,000 subscribers. I think it's 500, but you might need more watch time hours now. I believe they have changed it since I got monetized, so I'm not entirely sure. But again, it's an experiment at the moment. If it doesn't work out, there's other options. But the point is, we're thinking bigger in terms of scale, and you've helped me think a lot about that actually. When you talked about digital products and all of that, it becomes a wider scope in terms of where you're looking at the channel in a couple of years' time, rather than just a year. You're looking, you said before, 10-year goal, right? 10-year plan. So that's something I've been thinking about, not in terms of in writing or anything, just mentally saying, where could I be and where do I want to be? How much do I want to be earning? What do I want to create? All of these questions are just being asked, especially at these points at the end of the year where you start to reflect a lot more. So naturally, I've been doing that. It hasn't been a week of working at all, really. This has really been the only sort of piece of work related to MMA that I've actually done all week, because I was like, you need to rest. You need to take the time off. It's important to balance. Enjoy the holidays. Back on it tomorrow, though. As I said, 1st of January. It's a Monday. Perfect timing. Right with my schedule. So tomorrow, obviously, technically, we're really starting today with the podcast, but tomorrow, in terms of the YouTube channel, we are back on it tomorrow. I'm rebooting my Casuals Guide series. I'm recapping the divisions again. I said when I first made them, I was going to make it an annual thing, and now that's looping around. And I think that will do well. I think it's going to be a strong start to the year. I hope it will be, but I'm very excited. I'm optimistic. I was a lot more compared to last year. Last year, when I first started, it was fear, but also excitement. Now it's still a bit of that, but it's sort of confidence as well. And I'm sure you kind of feel the same way as you get to more accustomed with where you are and where your goals are. No, you're shaking your head.
No, I mean, I couldn't agree anymore. If I
okay.
liken where I feel I am now to where I was last year, this time last year, if I remember correctly, I was doing a little bit of work for a friend just for some cash in hand type thing of a terrible job. I was working horrible hours, doing horrible work, sometimes leaving my house at 4 a.m., getting home at 11 p.m., working in the van, just on Casuals Corner, listening to podcasts, replying to comments in my lunch hours. I'd be creating content, doing all these things. That was last year. And then that was eventually when I said, you know what, I'm going to quit this. I'm going to go to Australia. I've no idea what I'm doing. I'm just going to have a little think while I was having a break, because I was so caught in the monotony of that life. I had to change something because I felt like I was spiraling into monotony of the stereotypical life of the Brit, and I was not enjoying it.
Yeah, you're not about it.
No, I'm not. So I had to get out of that, and that was exactly this time last year. So if I fast forward a year, and it's what we said when we were in person, when it was actually just thinking about different things I've done this year. But when I think about the point I've got to now, where I've been able to move all my income online, where I've been able to give myself that freedom to be able to travel and actually work, get paid for it, and to go around the globe and do the same thing, it's night and day from where I was last year. And so now I've actually got a bit of direction and a bit of focus. I feel like I can actually go a bit more tunnel vision, rather than just trying to boil the ocean, see what pops up and see what I can do here and there. I have actual more established lines of information now to go, right, okay, now I can actually go and seize these opportunities. So in terms of the new year, I'm ready to actually work to my potential for the first time in ever. To work truly to my potential, which I've never done. Even this last year, even where I've worked very hard.
I find that hard to believe when I see how much you do. But obviously, your goals are, your aspirations and your opinions are always never going to be enough for your own good.
It's
so
not me being hard
it.
on myself. It's not me being hard on myself. It's just, objectively speaking, if I step back and I look at my day 7 days a week, and I think, am I doing everything that I can be to be achieving my goals? I'm not. And the truth is, do I have any other desires? No. So if I don't have any other desires and I don't have any other goals, then every moment that I'm not essentially doing something more beneficial to the business or to myself, family or friends' health or wealth or well-being, then I'm essentially just dying, is how I feel these days.
Jesus
and it's
Christ.
true. It's true.
So you say you're not being hard on yourself?
I'm not being hard on
Sounds like
myself. I'm
it.
being
Yeah.
truthful. I'm
Yeah,
just
no,
being
I get it. I get it.
genuinely. I'm just
Thing is,
being
you can't
honest.
change like that. I understand it. You're never gonna change. Like that's how it is. It's a never-ending drive, and that won't really ever go away. You're never gonna be feeling like you're up to your potential, and that can work in your favor or not, depending on how you take it. And I think
What else am I doing?
you're taking
What
it
else
now.
am I
Yeah,
doing? If
exactly. I
I'm,
get it.
that's my point. Is
I understand.
if I'm not contributing in a positive way to necessarily, like I said, myself, my friends, or my family's health or well-being, even if that's the simple form of a conversation, and they're being heard, that's an example of it. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. If I'm not doing any of those things and I'm not contributing to my business in a positive way, I'm not researching, I'm not reading, I'm not even doing a sleep routine to get me an elevated level of sleep. It doesn't always have to be hard cutting, hard nosed work and graft. It can just be ways to improve. If I'm not doing that, I feel as if I'm treading water, and I don't want for anything else in this world. So I feel like I'm dying quicker than I should, and it does
Jesus
sound
Christ, it's just
morbid,
deep, isn't it?
but it's true. It's literally just true.
Yeah.
I do
Well,
feel like
I
that.
mean, carrying that mindset, not just from you, but from me as well, combined, I mean, I'm sort of segueing here, if we both are able to channel that into the podcast as well, that's going to be very exciting,
True.
because I know we began to step up with that. Again, still stuff we can improve on. As you said, we're never gonna be truly satisfied, but I think we can admit there's stuff we can improve on in terms of the podcast. But again, learning process, we got a lot of big plans. Hopefully by the end of the year, we haven't actually set any proper goals, really, have we? I don't think, for the podcast. We've planned. We've had a weird
I
plan of
have
action in terms of what we want to do, but in terms of milestones, I don't think we've. If you have, please, I would love to know.
nothing crazy, but I think the thing that we
No, of
done
course not.
well, and I think the thing we had the advantage of over a lot of people who maybe do stuff like this, is we weren't too discouraged by what it looked like or sounded like or acted like for a good while. We said, right, let's just do one a week, nothing less, nothing more. We spoke about this before, and slowly we'll incrementally improve. And we have done that. So we're at a point now where we're 30 in and everything continues to evolve. So I think for the next year, obviously we've got the short form more taken care of with the scheduling. So I think once we do that, that's going to help to elevate the brand level side of
Massively.
things, right? I think then if we can look to try and do one in pos a month, I think that's massive
I
as
mean,
well.
we're already
because
on
then,
that. We've got one booked in.
well,
So for
well,
the
there we
for the
go,
listener, I'm
exactly.
speaking, really. Yeah, we do
Well,
have
there we
another
go. So
in-person episode booked in.
we've already got two, right? So that's already 2 weeks of content essentially there already done, because we've got the last week's and then this week's. So that's one. And then it's just guests. And I think more so than anything, I think if we say last year was the consistency of actually turning up every week, I think now we know we've ingrained that into our subconscious, and we haven't missed
Agreed.
a week. Whether I've been in Abu Dhabi, we've done it together. If we've just been tired, hungover, whatever,
Doesn't
we've
matter.
always rocked up. We've always done it. And I think the level up from this year is at least having 4 guests, whether that's in person or on the screen, as a minimum. I think
minimum,
it's
yeah.
yeah, exactly. Having the weekly clips posted, and I think even just that is gonna elevate the podcast dramatically, I think, personally.
Yeah, I think you said last year was about consistency. I think this year's about expansion. That's probably
Nice.
the word I would best use to describe where we can look. I think expanding,
Mm.
using our reach as much as possible, using our platforms as much as possible. Obviously, mine is a bit more narrow in scope in terms of where I can push it. The YouTube doesn't really offer that same level of outreach that a platform like TikTok or Instagram does. So you definitely have that option. But that's the powerful thing. We both have platforms spread across pretty much everywhere. We've got our bases covered, if that's probably
I've
the
got a
best way
good
to describe
Facebook
it. So
profile.
yeah, exactly. We've got pretty much every platform. I can't think of a platform that, obviously you do most of the heavy lifting in terms of reach, but in pretty much every platform, I think we're covered in terms of traffic, and they're all growing. That's the exciting thing. We're only going to get bigger, and we're only going to grow further. So I can't wait. I'm excited. I really want to start moving to in person more and more as much as possible. Obviously now it's not as much of an option in terms
100%.
of booking, but we're grateful. And guests is, I think we need to, as much as possible, we need to really push for that, because I think interviewing people is That's a skill you have to learn.
It
I think you're
is.
obviously
It
much more versed
is.
than I am. But again, we handled ourselves pretty
Not
well in the times
really.
that we did do it. That what? What do you mean not really?
I wouldn't say I was more well versed. Maybe just
What, than
a
me?
little
Nah, you were.
bit more practice, maybe, but not
Yeah, a
much.
bit more
Not
practice,
much.
yeah. I mean, but again, something to do, right? And that's really what the podcast for me, when I envisioned it at the start, it was about, I guess, just telling stories in the same way I do on my channel. It's not me telling stories this time, it's getting other people to do it. So
Agreed.
whenever I think of having a guest on, that's what I think of. So um yeah, definitely something to plan in terms of we can get anyone on, fighters, people in the space. Creators obviously is a
Creators,
big
yeah.
focus.
I want
Yeah.
to get as much value
Um
this year from really, really talking to people in the space, working in the space, and just hearing and really illuminating their processes, their journeys, their struggles. Because I've said it before, I'll
Completely
say
agree.
it again. There will be more people than ever in 2024, whether they're at uni, secondary school, leaving college, whatever it may be, left university, that are watching this sport and see people creating content in this sport and will want to do the same and create a job out of it. And no one services that industry, and that's our responsibility. So if we can put information and help and all the operational content out there to actually do this stuff and provide value, then I think we can, like I've said before, we can sort of become the synonymous with that information in the
Yeah,
space,
absolutely.
I think's a good thing, right?
And I will say, just small achievement, but I mentioned to you how our last episode did 350 something views on YouTube, which is, for a podcast, I'm not going to complain at all. I think that's pretty damn good. So, again, breaking new ground. It might not be much, but we'll look back on this in hopefully just a year maybe, but as peanuts, as nothing. So it's exciting. It's an exciting time, I have to say.
We should be under just
Scary but exciting.
100. If you think about it, we should be on around the 80 mark next time that we do this conversation.
80 what?
Podcasts.
Yes, I was actually thinking of that when you said you said we're on episode 30. I was like doing the math on how long we would be. Yeah, it'd probably be about. Right, we'd be closing in on 100. Well, no, 80, 85, right? 84, something like that. Yeah, not far
Yeah,
off. Yeah,
you'd literally add 52 on. I don't think it's that hard of a maths
52.
equation.
Wait, why not
Yeah.
54 though? Why not 54? There's 54 weeks, isn't it? Is there not?
Oh my word. No, there
No,
is not.
no, 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 no. No, I'm not doing this.
There's
I'm checking
52.
this. Oh shit. Yeah, I've
Did
been
you not
humbled
know
there.
that?
That is actually questionable. I think for the last 5 years of my life, or however long, probably more than that, I thought there was
What do you
54
mean
weeks in the
5
year.
years? What were you thinking before that?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess yeah. All right, even longer then. Jesus, I thought there was 54. That is really poor. All right, never listen to me for anything ever. I didn't know that. That is very poor.
Done.
Jesus Christ. That is that's that's
One thing,
terrible. Right. I mean, let's.
one, no,
Sorry,
one
you
thing
go. Yeah.
before we wrap, one thing we got to speak about definitely is Leon Edwards has just announced that he will
I
be
was going to bring this up.
in the mix for UFC 300 against an unknown opponent. My money is on Bilal Muhammad up to this point. I don't think that's any secret. What do you think about that?
As in that potential fight, or who I think's going to be fighting him?
Everything above.
Well, for me, it's a weird one because when you look at the UFC 300, you don't think of Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. I'm gonna be honest, that doesn't
Why?
doesn't ring as a fight that makes me jump out of my seat. You don't need to lie to yourself either. You know it's not a fun fight. But at the same time, if you put it on a card like UFC 300, people are going to be watching anyway. So maybe you just dump it on there and say,
That's why
fuck
they're
it.
doing that.
They'll put it as a co-main or something, and then you have Aspinall or Conor, whoever, headline in the main event. So that maybe is the option. The other alternative I was thinking is Makhachev moving up. That could be an avenue. They do that as a main event super fight, but personally, not interested in it. Let the champs defend their belts. I'm sick of super fights. I know you are as well. I think everybody is at this point. We don't need another double champ for now. Let's just get these belts defended and let's get these divisions rolling. That's what I want to see. I think that's what everybody wants to see. So Belal Muhammad does look like the option. It's not exactly a fun fight. The question is, who's going to be on the main event? Because there's no way that's going to be it.
Conor McGregor.
It's got to be in it. I mean, Conor McGregor is announcing his. Well, I say he is announcing his fight today, as he said on Twitter. Whether I believe that or not, I don't know. That man says a lot of things on Twitter, so who knows?
I don't think they're going
Conor
to do
McGregor,
it for
Michael Chandler.
300. I don't think they're
You
going
don't
to do
think
it
so?
for
They
300.
have to. They absolutely have to.
They don't.
If that doesn't happen, that is the worst bit of management I've ever seen. Because if you had UFC 200, which fell to pieces, well, out of their own hands, right?
Imagine that they go Conor July International Fight Week.
Nah. I mean, I could see it. Whether I want that or not is a different question.
Against Dustin Poirier.
No, you don't do that. That is criminal. You cannot do that.
I thought
No.
about it yesterday, and I thought, I don't believe there is a really high chance of this happening. But the more I think of it happening, the more it makes sense. Because there's going to be very restricted time that you can maximize the name value in both of these fighters. And they don't have a lot of fights left. Maybe one or two for both of them. And they are the biggest names in the sport. And no one really wants to see it, but everyone will watch it for certain. So do they just try and squeeze the last bit of juice out of both of their top dogs?
I hate that you're planting the seeds in my brain. I hate it.
Because when you say it out loud, it makes
happen.
more sense, right?
No, I know. Exactly. I don't want that, though. This got to be on 300. You don't have UFC 300 without Conor McGregor. It was meant to be on 200. It fell out of the UFC's hands, as did Jones DC. I just don't understand it. It seems like if that doesn't happen for 300, they are fumbling this event on their own admission. I don't get it. Because there's so many fighters booked around 300, but not on that card. Like, who do you have left? It doesn't make sense to me. Unless they're cooking up something that none of us know, which I feel could be. They could have a secret weapon up their hands. Whatever that is, I don't know.
Who?
Exactly. I don't know. But you know what these are like, these annual events. Brock Lesnar was meant to be a secret before Ariel
Dylan
Helwani,
Danner should fight, in my opinion.
Yeah, I could see something like that happening, purely because they're being very secretive about it. You know, we're only 4 months away, sorry. And obviously they started to announce fights. There's going to be more fights announced this week. But it feels like they're saving something. And for an event like this, it wouldn't surprise me. Maybe a Nate Diaz return. I know you touched on that last week. I don't see a world where Conor McGregor doesn't headline. I really don't. I feel like you just have to do it. It makes perfect sense. He was meant to do it last time. It feels like maybe a bit of a homecoming moment. Gold Octagon, face of the fight game, headlining in front of thousands. I didn't like the Gold Octagon, I will say, but they'll probably do it again. It's regal. It's you know what I mean? It deserves a fighter like McGregor. As much as I'm not really a fan of him, it deserves the respect of someone who really built MMA into what it is. So I feel like you have to do it. Maybe it's a bit of romanticism in there, but I feel like McGregor has to headline. Whether he will or won't, I don't know. I feel like it's a big mistake on their part if they don't do that, though. That's where I'll sit on it.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. We're in a weird spot. I said at the start of this episode, there's not much to really touch on in terms of MMA news because for the first time, we've got a few weeks where there's just not really much happening. Obviously, we touched on the boxing last time. I will see, Ashley, did you see Aljamain Sterling in the Fury grappling event?
Every event last night.
Did you?
Every single, yeah.
Wow, I just saw the Aljamain Sterling clip on Twitter. Yeah.
No, I actually forgot to say that. It's funny you said, because at the start you said there's been no combat things. In my head, I thought I just watched a 5-hour jiu-jitsu card last night. So I definitely did watch some combat.
One of the wildest armbar escapes I've ever seen. I will say that. Pretty unorthodox, but cool. Yeah, that's it.
There was some
very good.
There were some fun matchups on that card, actually. Pat Sabatini got a Sulev stretch over Nico Price.
A Sulev stretch? Wow.
Over Nico Price.
I think we did a little bit of trivia on that. I tested you on this, on when they were. Or maybe that was a twister. I can't remember. But they were both the only two on the UFC were on the same night. Sterling was one of them, and beat the other, I believe. I could be wrong there, but I believe they were both on the same night, which is quite an interesting little fact, which I think we can round off on. I know it's a bit of a shorter episode than usual, but again, it's a quiet week for us. But again, roll on the new year. Can't wait for, was it 297 next? Which I'm sure we'll do our predictions on next week.
Why don't you give some number predictions for the final?
Number predictions.
Okay, this is good. Why don't you give some numbered predictions or forecasts for this year? So with your channel, with this channel, just throw as many predictions out there, and
I like that.
We can go back and look at it. That'll be fun.
Okay, so I said earlier, 40,000 subscribers to the YouTube channel. I don't really want to give goals on TikTok and stuff like that and other platforms because that's not really my focus. But let's say 1,000 on TikTok. So YouTube 40,000, TikTok 1,000, Instagram again. That's just for connections. For the podcast, I do want to aim high with it because why not? You know what I mean? Screw it, 1,000 subscribers. I think we can do that. It might be difficult, but I think 1,000 subscribers is pretty achievable with our own platforms and the traffic we can bring to it. I think 1,000 is pretty damn achievable.
Yeah. I think 1,000.
Is that too high or too low? I'm trying to read you.
I just think it's hard to. It's hard to summarize just on YouTube alone because that's not how everyone necessarily watches or listens. And I think this year we'll definitely do a good job in putting it out on Spotify for the audio, putting it out on YouTube for the visual, and then breaking it up. So I think we're going to get a lot of people this year that don't necessarily even watch the full episodes. But we get a lot of people that watch the podcast, which is sort of very similar. So yeah, I didn't say 1,000 on there. I will be at 100,000 on Instagram and on TikTok, 100,000 by the end of the year. I'm never too.
I like that. I like that boldness. It's not. I hope it's. I will.
Oh, I will certainly. I never get too caught up in vanity metrics as such, but I think when you run social platforms, it's always an easy way to sort of quantify things for sure. And yeah, motivate. I'm not really bothered, to be honest, at all. I couldn't.
I get what you mean. You kind of lose touch with it after a while. It just becomes numbers on the screen. I understand it.
It just becomes I become very numb to it, but I do not become numb to the fact that when it's on TikTok, the bigger they are, the more I get paid, and on Instagram, the bigger they are, the more opportunities I get. Right, so they're quite simple equations. So 100,000 on each for certain, and yeah, I definitely want to. This year, I want to travel to 4 different countries for work.
I like that.
I would like to cover a UFC event, a PFL event, a Cage Warriors event, and a ONE FC event all this year.
Wow,
that's what I would like to do.
I'd
like to make. Yeah, I would like. They're my main sort of ones, just off the top of my head. That's where I think we'll be at 12 months. I think that's a good place to wrap.
Yeah, I'll say a last thing. I mentioned it last week. Aljamain Sterling, we're going to get him on at the end of the year. I'd like to get him on. Sure. I said he'd be my number one guest. I think he'd be a laugh. I mentioned that. So that's a goal. Sure. Fuck it. We'll say that's a goal. But yeah, this has been the MMA Creators Podcast, episode number 31. We roll on to next week. I've been Leo. That's been Will. You know our platforms. You find them in the description, wherever you've been. We appreciate you. See you next Sunday. Cheers.